urgency to find cures. Since our founding in 1949, we have been at the forefront of funding cutting-edge research that has led remarkable breakthroughs in treatment and in improving education, support, and hope. We're not just funding research, we're pioneering it. Our investment of over $1.7 billion has contributed to nearly every major investment and advancement in blood cancer treatment, helping advance 70% of blood cancer treatment options approved by the FDA since 2017. Harnessing the immune system is one of the most important treatment breakthroughs for blood cancers in decades. Research has developed countless therapies that have given the immune system the boost it needs to destroy cancer cells, including CAR-T, immunotherapy, monoclonal bispecific and antibodies, and immune checkpoint inhibitors. LOS has been a driving force behind this research leading to these life-changing treatments. This year, we've seen incredible advancements for immunotherapy, which continued investments and investing in the most promising research. But our mission extends beyond research. We provide critical support to patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals through education and patient services, supporting you through every part of your cancer experience, from diagnosis through treatment and beyond. Ensuring that you have access to cutting-edge therapies, information, guidance, assurance, and financial assistance is paramount to our mission. We understand that navigating a diagnosis and treatment plan can be overwhelming. This is why our information specialists are here to provide you with treatment information, personalized assistance, and to connect you with supportive services. Our Clinical Trial Support Center, staffed by registered nurses, will help you find clinical trials and personally assist you throughout the entire clinical trial process. Finally, our Nutrition Education Services Center is here to help all centers and cancer types receive free nutrition education and one-on-one consultations by our registered dietitians. And to help you learn more, I encourage you to visit LOS.org. At the state and federal level, we advocate tirelessly on behalf of and with the blood cancer patients and their families for policies that accelerate the development of new treatments and decrease the medical debt. In 11 states, LOS has helped secure new laws that will protect patients from medical debt, a financial burden that patients face through no fault of their own, and we are continuing to work and to access these assistance throughout the country. These policies are addressing debt that has already been occurred and well as helping patients avoid future debt. And after nearly a decade of advocacy, we helped reform Medical Part D so that patients can more easily afford their prescription drugs. This year has taken into effect that some of you are saving dollars on medications right now. Together, our sponsors, volunteers, and partners are making a difference every day in the lives of millions of people affected by blood cancers. Nowhere is this sense of community more present than at our annual Light the Night events. Each fall, thousands of people across the country gather for evening walks to celebrate, honor, and remember those impacted by blood cancer while raising funds for LOS. We would love for you to join us at one of those walks held right here in the Georgia-South Carolina region. And with that, it's now time and my pleasure to introduce our keynote speakers, Mel and Cecilia Mann. Mel Mann was diagnosed 29 years ago with chronic myeloid leukemia. He was given 3 years to live unless a bone marrow donor was found. However, he was unable to find the life-saving donor. In 1998, Mel entered phase 1 of the life-saving lytic clinical trial and is the world's longest living lytic and trisome kinase inhibitor, TKI, survivor. Mel previously served as the National Community Outreach Coordinator for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Myeloma Link program, expanding the pilot from 2 cities to 13. Mel and Cecilia have explored and advocated for patients with blood cancer at the state and national levels. Now please, stand and help me give Mel and Cecilia Mann a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here with folks from Georgia and South Carolina, and it's like a big family to me because we have so much in common, and very passionate about this subject. And I have titled my talk this morning, I Didn't Hear No Bell, One More Round. And a lot of people are curious about the title and say, well, is it about the cancer bell or whatever? No. I got this from, I like to watch movies, and one of my favorite movie scenes is from a scene in Rocky V. And in this scene, Rocky he's in a street fight with this young kid by the name of Tommy Gunn. And he was a mentor to this kid, and somehow the relationship took a bad turn. So Tommy Gunn is like beating Rocky down. He's got him out in the street, and he actually knocks Rocky into a state of, I would say, semi-unconsciousness. And during that state, Rocky is like laying down in the street, and he's having this flashback of all his greatest fights. And he sees his coach, or his trainer, Mickey, and Mickey's leaning down over him, saying, get up, he's no machine. Don't just lay there. I didn't hear no bell, one more round. And that is my experience, and has been my experience with CML, blood cancer. So to understand my story, I would like you to travel with me back to 1994, actually December 1994. I was a major in the Army. I was stationed up in the Detroit area at a place called Tacom, and I was living there with my wife Cecilia and my daughter Patrice, and I had been experiencing back pain for probably about 6 months off and on, and fatigue, night sweats, all that stuff. But the back pain was what really drove me to the office, to the clinic. So I went by the clinic at up there in the Detroit area at Selfridge, and they didn't have the capacity to do a lot of things. But my back was hurting so bad that the doctor ordered an MRI. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with the MRI, but I'm going to explain that in a second. But I had to go all the way down from Detroit to Dayton, Ohio, to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so I traveled down there, and I go into the place to do the MRI, and the MRI is like this big machine where they slide your body into. And it felt like a coffin to me. Not that I've been in a lot of coffins before, but that's the way it felt to me. And the technician, before I got started, he offered me a choice of music to listen to. and he had some CDs, and I picked a CD by this young new artist by the name of Tony Braxton, that I wasn't really familiar with. And as I lay there in this in this machine, the song comes on, and it has these lyrics. And the kind of like this: if I never feel you in my arms again, I should never breathe again, and never breathe again. I'm like, whoa. I'm not superstitious or anything, but I didn't like those lyrics. And the technician's yelling at me, you need to lay still. I'm yelling back at him, you need to change that CD. So I make it through that experience, and I go back up to Michigan, and I go by my boss's office, and I kind of laugh about it, and I joke about how eerie that was. And after that, I went on a Christmas vacation, and Santa Claus brought our daughter Patrice a beautiful little pink bike. So after the holidays, I remembered the MRI. And I said, well, let me go by the office and see what the results of that MRI are. So I go by the office, and this is still at Selfridge Air Force Base in Michigan. And the doctor, she invites me in, and she gets the copy of the MRI report, and she's reading the lab results, or the scan report. And I can see the expression on her face change. And I can tell it was not good. And then she says, well, this report here says that your bone marrow is not the normal bone marrow of a 37-year-old man. I said, well, what does that mean? She says, well, you may have anemia or leukemia or some other blood disease. And so she invites me, into her office to sit in these high chair seats, like something like this. And I'm having a little PTSD now because they got the same seats here. So she calls the lab technician in to get some blood. So he comes in, he takes the blood test, goes back out, and then a few minutes later he comes right back in and says, his white count is 132,000. And she says, 132,000. And now I didn't know what 132,000 was or what it meant, but I knew it wasn't good because of the way they said it. I'm sitting in this high chair and they're both about the same level. And they look at me and all I could say was 132,000. So he leaves back out, and then she says, well, I'm a general practitioner. I need to call the oncologist down at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and talk to him. So she leaves out, comes back in about 5 minutes and says, the oncologist at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base says you need to come down to Dayton ASAP today and be prepared to stay 3 days or 30 days. So, I'm in shock. So I have to go back home. I go back home and I go in and I sit down on the couch, and my wife Cecilia, she must have seen that look on my face, and she looks at me and says, well, what's wrong with you? And I told her about the diagnosis, and the tears just started rolling down her face. So I packed my bag, and then I got to drive 30 minutes into the Detroit area to TACOM, Tank and Automotive Command in Warren, Michigan, and tell my boss, because in the Army you can't just go anywhere you can't just leave for 3 days, and especially for 30 days. So I go and I sit down on my boss's couch, and I must have had that same look on my face because he looks at me. He says, what's wrong with you? I said, well, that MRI test that we were laughing about? So I go and we talk about that. And then I head on down to Wright-Patterson. And I get there that evening. And the next morning, I go by the doctor's office.
And there's only one person in the doctor's office, and it's this young kid from Fort Knox, Kentucky. Now this is 1995, and this is before Dr. Google and YouTube University and all of, there's only one guy on the block that had a computer. And eventually he had to teach me how to use one. But I didn't know anything about CML. So I asked this kid about leukemia, because he was coming back for a second appointment. And that was a mistake also, because he starts talking about the needle that they do the biopsy and the aspiration. And he talks about it for 20 minutes, and he says that needle is about that big. And by the time I go in to see the doctor, because he was the one who does the examination, and I said, well, can I see that needle? And he shows me this needle. He's got it laid out, and I'm looking at it like, that's a needle? It was kind of big. So he goes ahead and he does the procedure. In my mind, I go out to the beach, meditate, go out to the beach, and I'll play a game of chess in my head, and then eventually the procedure's over. And then he calls me into his office, and he has a couch, and he's sitting there and behind his desk, and he says, well, I'm pretty sure I know what you have, but I have to wait to confirm it with these tests. But he says, you have chronic myeloid leukemia, and the prognosis is 3 years to live. And then, when he told me that, I was like sinking down into that couch, and actually my back stopped hurting. But then I had a hearing problem, and his voice was coming in like interference in the telephone, bad connection. So he kept talking, and then he goes, the only cure is a bone marrow transplant. And all this is new to me. And as he's doing that, I'm thinking about Patrice, because she's only 5 years old. And I'm at 5 plus 3, and I keep getting 8. I'm thinking, well, she's just going to be a fuzzy memory. I'm just going to be a fuzzy memory to her, if this is all true. And I hear this loud thumping on the wall, and I turn around, and I look, and it's like the second hand of the clock. It was just ticking away. And I remember that, we had just got that bike for Christmas for Patrice, and it still had one training wheel on it that Cecilia and I were teaching Patrice how to ride that bike. And I wondered, how was I going to tell my mom about this diagnosis? Because my mom used to always say, you go to the doctor for one thing, and you come out of there with something else. So I just knew that, it's really going to, hurt her, and I was really afraid to do that. So it was just, it was really bad. And I asked the doctor, well, will diet and exercise help? And he said, no. And I said, well, can I still work out? And he said, yes, but don't run any marathons. So after that, I go back to Michigan, and I go back down and tell, I have to tell my mom, I want to tell her in person. So we drive back down to Michigan, and I sat down on the couch, and I must have still had that funny look on my face, because you probably can guess what she said. She looked at me, and my sister looked at me, and they said, what's wrong with you? Now here's a part that I didn't tell you. When I was in the doctor's office, he had explained to me about bone marrow transplants. He had said that there were very few people on the registry, especially blacks. And the year before, there were 2,000 blacks that needed a transplant, and only about 20 of them had actually found a donor, 1%. He also explained that even if you found a donor, it was a 50-50% chance of survival. So all that information I had to weigh and to explain, and he said my best chance was my sister, because you get half the DNA from doctor, because actually I felt like I had a bad lottery ticket. When you get the diagnosis like that, you just want to check it again. I said, I need a second opinion. And so they flew me up to Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland, and they said the same thing. 3 years to live. So, while we're up there, we just went on a little tour by the White House. Couldn't get inside the gate or anything, but we were able to take a tour of the city. And after that, I started the drug called interferon, which is daily injections in my leg or my stomach. I had to do that every day. So, what happened after that is that the doctor called me. He said, your sister is not a match. And he repeated it because he knew I had that hearing problem. He said, your sister is not a match. And so then I said, I went by the marrow agencies and I said, I want to do a bone marrow drive. And they said, well, it's better for us to do a drive, or do these drives for you so you can focus on your health. But I felt that it would be better for me as far as getting empathy and just getting out there and adding people to the registry. So they said, okay, we'll help you. And they put my face on a poster. Now, a poster is the last place that you want your face on because it's usually not a good thing. And they put my face on a poster, and I start doing marrow drives. At the first drive, 350 of my coworkers, they stuck their arm out and they gave blood, and they were just excellent. And after that, we kept doing drives. Did drives all over the country. I did drives in churches, colleges, military bases, just a bunch of drives. And France done drives in Germany, Korea, Hawaii. We even did drives at the Pentagon. We had a lot of folks that joined up, and we even set the world record. At one of the drives, with over 10,000 people, which is good because for every 430 people that join the registry, one life is found, one life is saved. So we were able to help a lot of folks, but I could not find a match. So I had to retire from the military. Because after my diagnosis, you could not stay in the military with CML. So I moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, because my wife is from, she's from Columbus, Georgia, Phoenix City area. And we moved down there, and her aunt started doing, she did like 4 or 5 drives. And I went to this one drive, and was a gentleman who had hairy cell leukemia. Leukemia came to the drive. He says, hey, these drives are great, you're saving lives, but I recommend that you go out to MD Anderson, where I just came from, because I was just on the clinical trial. I was near death, and they turned my leukemia around. So that's what, in fact, I did. I went out to MD Anderson, and I started doing marrow drives. And at one of the drives, not doing marrow drives, but clinical trials. But at one of the marrow drives, my daughter said, hey, Daddy, I can't see why you can't find a match. All the blood looks the same to me. But, it wasn't that simple. Okay, so I went out to, let's go back and see. I went out to MD Anderson, and then I started doing the clinical trials. And I did clinical trial after clinical trial, because that's what the doctor said, hey, I'm gonna put you on all these clinical trials. And it came up to the 3-year mark, and I said, hey, are there any more drugs? And he said, well, there's one drug that's close, and you'll be the first person to use it. The nurse said, well, you just told somebody else the same thing. And so I went back home, and about 6 months later, he called me, and he said, hey, we've got that drug, and you can come out and try it out. And I was the second person to try the drug, and the drug was called Gleevec. And the first person did not respond, but I responded so well that I was able to run a 26.2-mile marathon in Alaska. first doctor who said don't run any marathons. And I was able to cycle 111 miles in Tucson, Arizona. All these both for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I was able to raise $12,000. The drug was eventually approved almost 3 years later, accelerated approval in 2001. Dr. Drucker there is the researcher, physician behind the drug, and you would never know from talking to him that he was able to save so many, probably millions of lives because the drug, and that was the first drug. So now there's like 3 generations of that type of drug, which is imatinib, but there's different drugs that can help CML. And CML is a tyrosine kinase inhibitor. And there are 80 tyrosine kinase inhibitors, which help like hundreds of diseases. And I just put that there because you probably can't read that. That's probably too small. But that's what it does. It just helps like millions of people. My daughter, she grew up. She went to Harvard College and Emory Medical School, and she's a physician herself. 1 year ago, 2 years ago, I was able to get inside the gates, go to the White House, and I would never thought that many years ago. We still do the bone marrow drives. We still do a lot of advocacy, and this has been a really blessing. And I was diagnosed so many years ago, and I thought my only cure could come from a bone marrow transplant, but instead my cure came from a drug that was only a gleam in a researcher's eye at the time of my diagnosis. So my thing and my message to you is, just hang in there, do your research. You've got your Mickey's in your corner, so stay tough, and God bless you, and thank you.
Can we just give him another round of applause? So we're going to move over into our another session where we're just going to come on and have Mel and Cecilia, and they're going to just do a Q&A with me, and we're just going to be just real relaxed, and we're going to have some good answers and questions going on. Cecilia and thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for sharing your story. I know it can be difficult at times because it's such an impactful story and it's changing so many people's lives, but thank you for sharing that. I'm just going to jump right in. At 37 years old, Mr. Doe, you were diagnosed with CML, and I know that was something that was difficult for you, and at the time you were in the Army, so that meant you had to walk away from your career. And a lot of times when patients are diagnosed, that means walking away from their career, their livelihood, and that's difficult. Tell me, how did you manage that?
Well, the Army had been a huge part of my life. I was in ROTC for 4 years, and then I did 15 years in the military. So it was hard, and I had a lot of support from my family, my friends, and the thing about which made it so easy is that the people on the post would do so much. One day I looked out the window. This is 15-year-old kid cutting my grass. People would babysit for Patrice, and people would bring meals by. This is like an Army community, and they help with the marrow drives, and so that helped make disability, and also be covered with the medical bills.
That's a blessing, such a blessing. And Miss Cecilia, I know you told me that when Mr. Mill found out that he said that he had synced, time had to slow down, and he felt like it synced in his seat. Now that right there is a powerful statement. Time slowed down, and he felt like he synced in his seat. So, you know, we've heard Mr. Mill's reaction. Can you tell me yours?
Yes, and first I'd like to thank you for including me in this conversation about a cancer patient's diagnosis and how it affects the family members, the caregivers, and family and friends. Mel worked 30 minutes from our home, and when he left for the day, I didn't expect to see him until the end of the day. And when he came back about 2 hours after he had left, and he had this solemn look on his face, and he asked me to come and sit with him on the sofa, I knew that wasn't good. So he proceeded to tell me that he had swung by the clinic before work to pick up the results from his MRI, and that the physician had ran some additional tests, and it revealed that he had cancer. And that was a huge blow. I was stunned. It felt like someone had snatched the rug from under me. I was just in disbelief. And so, as he proceeded to tell me that he would also have to go down to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, some 4 hours away, I just realized how disruptive this diagnosis would be to our family, and how important it was for me to continue to provide as stable as possible home life for Patrice, who was a bubbly kindergartner. And, you know, I didn't want to see that end, and so I vowed that I would do all I could so that Melvin could seek treatment to save his life and to preserve our family. And I was also just distressed that this disease was trying to tear apart our family and possibly steal Patrice's father and my husband.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, Miss Cecilia. That makes me think about the fact, like you said, Patrice was only 5, and having kids myself, I just can't even imagine. And you know, you take on so many roles as a mom, as a wife, as a caretaker. How are you able to cope with the new normal of having to take care of Mel and Patrice at the same time?
Yeah. That was tough because here I have a 5-year-old daughter, and her father is facing a 3-year terminal diagnosis, and I wanted to keep things age appropriate for her and not overwhelm her, and also I wanted to throw all of my support behind Mel while he seeks medical treatment away, while he goes on these bone marrow drives and recruitment sessions locally and away. And so I was a full-time parent. When we found out we were pregnant with Patrice, I decided to step back from work. So at this particular assignment, we had just gotten to Michigan, and we were all excited that Patrice was getting ready to start kindergarten, a milestone. And no one more excited than she, because she was looking forward to going to school and getting on that yellow school bus. And so for me, I also stepped back from returning to grad school, to family actually, because we thought he could use the chemotherapy and radiation at first, when he had received initial diagnosis at the clinic in Michigan. But then when we found out about the marrow transplant, and then him not having a match, with his sister or on the actual registry, we decided to take on going out and having the drives and recruiting more potential donors to increase Mel's chance and everyone else's chance. So that helped me to stop from spiraling into negative thoughts. And instead of the grad school, I just decided to help to recruit and reach out and contact the media to cover Mel's plight and to sound the alarm that more donors were needed to save more lives like Mel and the others.
Wow, that's amazing. Mr. Mel, I know it was extremely challenging for you, but tell us what helped you adapt to your new life and stay as positive as you could throughout the whole process.
I saw a lot of positive things happening. I saw people from the drives getting matches. In fact, my best Army buddy, he was a match for someone else. He signed up to help me, but he was a match. I was able to fly to Georgetown and witness the procedure. So just seeing stuff like that kept me going. Not that I was like, 100% positive all the time. There were times, a diagnosis like that you do have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and, just walk and, think. I stayed busy. I read a lot of books. I played chess. And, I had been on the Army chess team, and I worked out still and did as much as I could. I stayed involved with Patrice's schooling, and I point to Patrice because she's right there in the front. I'm sorry to call you out, but I just stayed busy, and the drives kept me busy, and so I could see that the positive things were happening.
That's awesome. And I want to go back to the point that you said that it was challenging, but you were doing the bone marrow donors, and we had the bone marrow donors that you were putting together, and you were doing the drives. That's amazing right there. That has to take accountability and to take just the wanting to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to advocate for myself, for my own health is amazing. Because a lot of times we can just take the words of what the doctors say, but to be able to say, I'm going to just advocate for myself, that takes a lot of courage. And thank you for doing that. Because you've saved a lot of people's lives. And that trial that you did was in MD Anderson in Texas, right? Yes. So what were your initial thoughts on doing a clinical trial?
Well, the gentleman that came to the trial, to the drive in Columbus, I could see that it worked for him, and he's still doing fine today. And so I had just never been told about clinical trials or how they really worked. And the timing was actually it cut it kind of close because I was diagnosed in '95 and was given 3 years to live. And it was like after that 3 years, 3.5 years, that I actually was on that trial, and another 3 years before it was approved. So if I'd never been on the trial, I wouldn't be here. It's just really a blessing for that. So I've been on some trials. Go out to Indiana, so I had to stay out there for a month. For this particular trial, I had to stay out there for 3 months, almost 4 months, because I had to get an apartment and all that good stuff. They would work for the drugs would work for a while, then they would stop, the work would stop. But I still kept hope, and this is the first time that they said like I'm going to be a pill that you could take, and that I couldn't really comprehend. They're talking about this other stuff, or this major stuff, and they said this is a little pill, the first of its kind, the first targeted drug of all time, and it
up saving that little drug for like 1 million people because, you know, every year, like worldwide, there was 40,000 people diagnosed with CML. And so at that time, there's probably like 100,000 people with CML at the most. Now it's like probably about 1 million people with CML because they don't die, or most of them don't die. So it was very encouraging.
Absolutely. Ms. Cecilia, did you have any concerns about the trial and Bill going through them? Because I know, I mean, if he felt that way, I couldn't even imagine how you felt.
Yes, I did have some concerns. The main one was that it wouldn't work. Because of the dismal odds of finding a match, and time was marching toward that 3-year death sentence, to put it bluntly. And with all the efforts of ourselves, our friends, our family, community, Mel still hadn't found a match. There were other matches being found, and thank God for that, and that was part of the master plan. But then when that gentleman came to the drive and told Mel about clinical trials, for us that seemed like a godsend. That was a golden opportunity, and that gentleman had such great results. And so Mel is a person who does a lot of research, and he likes to dig into things and find out what's behind things. So that was the same approach that he had with his diagnosis and his treatment. And so I felt very confident that it would be okay because of Mel, digging into things. And I must admit, the Tuskegee syphilis study did run through my mind. It did, but I felt that it was much safer now than 20 years or so earlier, that there's more transparency and more openness. So we had also pledged to our family and friends. We used to send out newsletters, updating on where we were in this crisis. And we had pledged to them that we would leave no stone unturned. And so this right here was a stone definitely worth turning over and exploring. So we were grateful for it.
You all have done such amazing work, but I just want to fast forward a little bit. When you have to adjust to the new life that you had, and a lot of times, people can have anxiety, they can have fear about what they're dealing with when it comes to their treatment, or even just their remission. Did you have any anxiety when it came to your remission? And then how did you deal with it if you did?
When I first started the drug, I said it worked. It worked, but they didn't know how long it's going to work. It wasn't until like maybe 10 years in when they said, well, you know what, you might have a normal lifespan. And then they still had to kind of wait, because I was the first person, the longest living person in the world on the drug. And then, so I had apprehension because I didn't know how long it was going to work. And every time, and back in those days, you had to get the aspiration every 3 months. They still had to get on your hip every 3 months. On the trial, I did it was like 16 times. Every time I went to the doctor, every 3 months, that apprehension would be there. Because I would forget about it for a while until it came time to take the blood test and the aspiration. And then I would get it, and then I would worry about it until I got the results back. So it was kind of like living between blood tests, that apprehension, sometimes it's still kind of there if I have a night sweat or if I'm like, and I still get fatigued, especially because of these drugs that do make you fatigued. They lower your hemoglobin. There's like a low level, but there's other times I forget that I have CML. So it's good and bad.
Good and bad, and that's okay. move to such positive things right now, so that's a great thing. Ms. Cecilia, being that he's talked about what kind of toll it's put on him mentally, emotionally, what did that do to you?
In terms of him being diagnosed with CML, this was not my first time at this rodeo, I'll tell you that. Unfortunately, my younger brother was diagnosed with blood cancer in his late teens, in the early 80s. And so I do have some type of anxiety, health anxiety, dealing with, male diagnosis, and just in general. And my daughter's trying to help me with that and to varying levels of success. But I am encouraged when I think about the advances that have been made since Mel's diagnosis. We can see him as example A. And then since my brother was diagnosed way back in the 80s. So for me, when I am feeling anxious or about my health, I have to realize that I can only control what I can control. And therefore, I make sure that, I go to my doctor's appointments, all the preventative tests, have them taken, let them know my family history, and I journal a lot, and journaling really helps. It helped through this entire experience with Mel, from when he first came home and told me. And journaling just helped me to work through anger, sadness, frustration, and go to mantras and solutions. And that's one of the ways that we came about with the helping to do the bone marrow drives and the education and stuff, working towards a positive end. So I just realized I just have to hold on to hope, because hope is so important.
Hold on to hope. Now that's a word right there. Ooh, I like that. As we close out, I want to ask you, what would you give, what kind of word or advice would you give patients and families that are kind of going through the same experience? We'll start with Mrs. Cecilia and end with Lynn.
Yes. I do have a thought or two, and the first one is caregiver burnout is real. So for the care partners, caregivers, and anyone who is dealing immediately with the patient, you have to remember to take care of yourself. It's okay to step back from cancer to refresh, whether that's for an hour, afternoon, an evening, overnight, so you can come back as your best self to help the patient, and to make sure that at the end of this journey that you are both standing. And in full disclosure, I'll have to say I was not good at that. I was not good at that, but I am encouraged that now there is more information out there for caregivers, and I know you have a caregiver session, and more tools to help you. So that's one thing. And then from my childhood neighborhood, there was an elder there when I told her that Melvin was diagnosed with cancer. She gave me a piece of sage advice, and she said, when he cried, you cry. When he laughed, you laugh. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but through that journey, our journey together, it has made sense. And in closing, I'll say, keep hope. And it's not over until it's over. And that's one of the mantras that our family lives by.
That's wonderful.
Very briefly, briefly, I would say first to the survivors, and just keep doing what you're doing. You watch your diet. It ain't gonna be perfect, but you still watch that and get out and do a little exercise. You don't have to run a marathon, but maybe walk a few times a week, and just be what you want to be, because you got like an invisible disease. You look okay from the outside, but still nobody sees what's going on the inside. So it's up to you. If you want to have an easy day, whatever you want to do is okay with you. And from the patient point of view, stay hydrated, get your rest if you can, those type of things, and just keep your head up. That's the main thing. Keep your head up.
Keep your head up and have hope. If we don't walk away with anything today, those are the things that I'm going to walk away with. Keep your head up and have hope. Thank you all so much for just sharing your inspiring stories. Thank you so much. We appreciate your strength, your resilience, and just your insight. And we just thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, y'all, let's give him another round of applause. That was amazing. One more time. And now, for a little housekeeping notes before we go to our sessions, our morning workout sessions will promptly begin at 11:15 a.m. So please note that the morning sessions are located on the screen here. And our staff and volunteers are at the registration tables to help if you have any questions or any concerns. And when we move into our morning breakout sessions, and when they end, please feel free to go into the foyer out here and make sure that you pick yourself up a meal. And when you finish getting a meal, please come back in here, and each of the meals will be available to you at at your will. But also come back in here and you can sit based on the disease for where you can, if you want to sit based on the disease that's available to you. And if you have any questions or concerns, please take a visit at our LLS Education and Services Exposition table. And we are here if you need any information, and that is at the specialist table as well. And they can help answer any questions, provide information and resources that LLS has on a national level. Lastly, I want to draw attention to the conference evaluation forms. I'm sure you've seen those. Please be sure to fill those out throughout the day and drop it off before you leave at the end of the conference, because we believe that your comments, your concerns, your thoughts are important to us, because you help us make this event so special. And we'll see you back here at 12:30, so go ahead and enjoy your sessions, guys.